Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will be talking about automation. Now, if you don't know what automation is, essentially, automation is a way in music to change an effect over time. So I say an effect, but it could be just anything. So you can change the volume over time of the whole song if you want to, or even just a single instrument. Like for instance, if you have a drum, a drum loop or whatever, and you want to do automation, you would create 2 points, point A, point B. Point A is at one volume, point B is at another volume, and it would automate between the two. So instead of you turning the volume yourself over a set period of time, you can get Ableton. I say Ableton because that's my DAW of choice. You can get Ableton to do it for you. So you can automate that parameter over a set period of time as long as you want, and you can make it happen whenever you want. So instead of dealing with the inaccuracies of doing it yourself, you're getting Ableton to do it, and you can do multiple at once. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Ableton and I'm going to show you some examples on what automation is and how to implement it, and then I'll show you an example of a song I'm working on that has automation in it. Alrighty, now we're in Ableton, and what I want you to do is follow along with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn automation mode off. I'm going to close everything so I just have these 3 tracks, and I'll talk about each one in a moment. But for the purposes of this, let's just show you exactly from the beginning. So first things first with automation is you have to have a sound. So it could be anything, but for the purposes, let's just do a bass sound. Like maybe this. Something not too harsh, but also not too soft. And then we'll double click here, and we'll input a sound that is a long, sustained sound. So now if we listen to this, you have this long, sustained sound. Now, we're going to go up here and click the automation button, and then we're going to press this button to open up the sound. And what we can do here, this is the only section we're going to care about for the moment, and then we'll come over here to input the actual automation line we want. But here, if you see where it says none, this is basically your window where you can select a parameter. And specifically, this is not the parameter window, but it's the sound, or it's the effect. So if I have multiple audio effects on here, like for instance, tuner, then tuner will show up. And then if I do utility, utility will also show up. So what I want you to do is drag a utility on there so we can automate the volume of the track. Now, of course, you could do it with the mixer, but if you're doing an actual song, you don't want to do that because then you'll mess with the mixing stage of the music. So for now, utility, and then when you're at the utility section, the bottom one is your specific parameter. So anything that's in the utility here can be affected. So you can even affect the stereo balancing, the gain, which is what we will do, the mono, anything. So what I want you to do is go to the gain section, and before we talk about the automation line, press this little plus button. And what this will do is create an automation lane. And if you don't know what an automation lane, essentially it's just a way to move your automations downward. So let's say I add another one like dynamic tube device on, whatever. If I add it down, there's another lane, and yet my sample is not covered up here. So now we're going to minus this, get rid of it, and we're just going to look at the gain. Now, how the automation line works is you can put a dot anywhere on this line. But as you notice where these lines are, there is a bit of a magnet. So if you want precision, then you can go down smaller. But for our purposes, 1 bar or 2 bar is fine. But you can see if you change it, the lines change. So what we're going to do is just do a simple utility gain. And now you may wonder why the line is in the middle. That's because we're at 0, and then up is 35 or more volume, and then down is negative 0 volume. So put a dot in one spot, and then put a dot in a second spot. And now when you have these two dots, click on one of them and drag it in any direction you want, and you will see the line will change. So there will be a ramp from one to the other, and then the rest after it will be totally flat. If I continue the sound here, then the line will still be straight, and thus this one will be at the lowest volume because I've set it to negative infinite. But also, if I drag the dot around this line, you can see its progression. You can see what numbers it goes through. Now, I can also place another dot here and then do this. And now there's a second automation line, automation, ramp. But for the purposes of this, we're just going with one, and we're going to delete the other one. Now, with this, we have a simple automation that'll do 0 volume, aka no gain, to no volume. So let's listen to what that sounds like. So you can see how it got quieter as it went down. Now, if you want to copy the automation, you can just do this, this, but for purposes, this is fine. So what we have here is our first simplest automation, which is just volume. Now, if we go back here and we press that circle again, it'll get rid of it, and thus, since this is the only circle there, its position will determine the whole entire line. If I do one here, and then I drag this, and then I do this, where is it going to go? Nowhere, because this guy told it to go nowhere. Now, if I do this one, boom, the line will go all the way to the bottom. So now, let's go back, and let's click here. So we have 2 dots at 0 dB. Let's move this one down. Now, we have the opposite of what we did originally, which will mean no volume to 0 volume. Or middle ground volume. And now that we've done that, you've done a very simple automation. And you can take this anywhere, of course. You can do a bunch of different crazy automation stuff. Like I could add in a bunch of random dots here and here, and then drag them around, and then now I got this like weird, funky automation thing going on. And now if we listen to this, now we have this crazy thing going on. But for now, let's delete this track and let me show you some other examples. So this guy here is the bass sound, so we can hear what it sounds without automation. But we're going to go over here, make sure this one is enabled, and this one is not. And now, before you get confused, just only look at this top 2. The top one is just the full track. This one is the volume automation. And the reason there's so many of these automation lanes is because I did a parallel processing rack, or audio effect rack, and I'm just using each one so I can show you each example. So what we're going to start with is very simple. It's just volume automation, which is something you've seen before. And this is a different sound, so you'll hear the difference. But again, soft, very soft with the automation. Next one, after the volume automation, which we saw, the next basic one is called a filter sweep. And it's where you sweep the filter slowly up or slowly down. But you can hear how it's different in ways. There you go. Next is another simple one, panning. This is using a utility, and we're panning from left to right. So take a listen to that. Left ear, and as the number changes, it'll go to right. Next, after panning, is going to be a simple dry to wet for reverb. And again, the point of me showing you all of these is to get it through your head that you can automate anything you want. And that gives you creative freedom to create some really interesting and really cool sounds that move and change over time. So here's the hybrid reverb. It's kind of hard to tell what it's doing, but there you go. Next one. Another very simple one. We're just going to be automating the frequency or pitch right now, because we're not in frequency mode, of the shifter. So it'll start very low and deep, and then it'll get higher. So that gets lower to higher. Again, these are very, very simple automation lines. I'm just showing you from like lowest to highest, or depending on what type of, effect it is, like shifter, I'm not sending it all the way to the top just so we don't hurt our ears. Same with the gain of the utility here. Last but not least is gate. And this is another typical classic one, which is gating a sound in and out. And of course, in the real world, you would typically want to do something with a compressor, like sidechain compression. But for the purposes of today, I just want to show you automation. So instead of making a sound compress and uncompress, we're just going to gate to turn the volume on and off. Really, we're turning the gate on and off, and when the gate is on, nothing goes through, and when the gate is off, sound comes through. So let's listen to this. So this one, again, is very simple, but it's more complex than the straight line angle up here. Now, I will show you this, which is the same exact thing, except instead of doing parallel compression, everything will happen at the same time. And this is to show you that you can do multiple automations all at once. Now I'm going to play it, and nothing will happen for a while. That's because we're automating frequency, we're automating volume, we're automating the utility, the hybrid reverb, shifter, gate. There you go. So the point of this video is to show you what automation is and how to do it. I'm not going to go into details into doing automation in this window, but this is another thing you can do, and that'll be a future video. But for our purposes, automation is just a way of taking an effect or a parameter and changing it over time from any level of that parameter to any other level of that parameter. And you can do more complex stuff like this gating, or you could even do stuttering effects by going really rapidly. Anyways, let me switch my camera here. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video of how to use automation in Ableton and some basic automation types that people use in their mixes. And hopefully from this you will have learned something and you can implement these techniques yourself into your own music. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you guys soon. Love you guys.